welcome back to A Cup of Leadership. This is our bi-weekly podcast where we interview former alums of the AELP program. So that's the Emerging Leaders Program at Arupe College and other influential people around our community to gain their perspective on leadership, serving others, and everything in between. We've been doing, I think this is our fifth episode, and we've had some really good guests so far, but I'm really excited about today's episode. So I'm going to kick it to Dean Sarah to introduce our guests.
Yeah, thank you. I can't believe that it's been five episodes already. But I'm very excited to introduce our next guest and to have Father Tom Knightsky, Arupe College's dean, to have a conversation with us today around leadership. So welcome, Father Tom.
Thank you. It's great to be with you guys. I look forward to our conversation.
Great. You arrived at Arupe during a pandemic. I think, what is this, like 275? Day 275?
Pretty close.
Pretty close, yep. So you arrived during the pandemic where kind of in-person communication and gatherings were halted. How have you adjusted your leadership style to really function in this virtual world and this environment, while also trying to get to know folks at Arupe and what Arupe is all about?
It's been a very strange transition for me. My leadership style is based on the fact that I hate sitting at my desk. And so I'm a person who, instead of writing you an email, will just run down, and Sarah, you witnessed this, I instead of writing an email, I'll just run downstairs and say, okay, what about this? Or what do you think about this? And it was funny because in my last job, people were saying to me, why do you even have an office? Like, we can never find you because you're always running around. And but I find that that personal connection and being able to just bounce off ideas with people and just running into people all the time in the hall, you get a real good feel of what's happening in the institution. And so that when I come here, and the first few months I was just in my room at the Jesuit community, there's no one to run into, there's no one to bump into. And so it took a real pivot for me. And we have to use this method of communicating through our Zoom boxes. But it causes us to be creative, and for me to be creative. Like, one of the things I love doing is always to be able to meet with students. And my favorite way to do that was to eat pizza with them in my office at my former job. And I can't eat pizza in my office with students now, but we found ways to do a virtual lunch and have those same conversations that I had with them in a different way. And the same with the faculty and the staff, finding creative ways to do that as well, whether that's through just regular meetings or to find some fun things to do, like the pop-up Arupe, so to think creatively on, so the pandemic put all these limitations on us, but then how do we find those creative ways to be able to get together? Now in the second part of the year, as we slowly have the momentum of coming back on campus, we're finding more creative ways to run into each other in safe ways and be able to learn about one another and what we're doing. So, but it's definitely been a real shift for me, and it's helped. Maybe some people might say disciplined me to be at my desk and focused. But yeah.
Well, I can attest to the pizza because Father Tom brought us pizza yesterday at the Arupe Market. So I think that students will look forward to at least having that part, when we're able to be in person again and having that opportunity. But, I like that idea of having to almost, like you said, be creative and kind of outsmarting the pandemic and figuring out ways to engage with people, and just how that has really kind of tested our abilities and tested the limits of how we think, right? And so, not being confined to a desk anymore, you had to think a little bit more broadly and take that kind of virtual. So you're still moving around, whether you're in virtual or in person.
Yeah, that's right, for sure.
Yeah. I would say, just in addition to that, I've gotten some feedback from students, and they really enjoy meeting with you in those small sessions. I think just coming here to Arupe and coming to a new environment during the pandemic was, I mean, that was a feat in itself. So I just want to like commend you on that and kind of immersing yourself in the community. I mean, when we were able to have a few in-person events with some of the student orgs, you always wanted to show yourself and to be present with that. So I want to thank you
Like
for
when
that
we,
as well.
like
But
when
yeah, look at your mask
we made these
with the
amazing
creative crew. Yeah. Father Tom was very proud of that A, by the way.
pretty awesome.
Very creative.
Well, for me, being able to meet with the students, it's been a great way for me to get to know the community because, I always ask them the same questions. What's the best part about Arupe? What would you change about Arupe? What's been the most difficult part of Arupe? And like, what's your favorite class? And so that covers a lot of topics and and great conversations. And so I get to learn not just about them, but really the whole environment and the culture of Arupe through their answers. They've been my teachers this past year on what it means to be a student, a faculty member, a staff member. What does it just mean to be community? So it's been a real gift, and actually, in some ways, Zoom really helped to facilitate that in ways that probably wouldn't have happened if we were in person, because I was able to reach out to so many different students at so many different times. And so, it's hard sometimes to think of the positive things of Zoom, but one of them was that it was really easy to get groups of students to be able to come together and share and talk, and it benefited me greatly. And it's the highlight of my time so far, when I was able to, I always said those student meetings got me through all the rest of the meetings I had afterwards. They had such great enthusiasm and really joy and love for this place. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, Father Tom, I think we're in some of our conversations, well, in a lot of our conversations with the students, especially from a staff perspective, we're talking to them about like, how are you caring for yourself during this crazy time right now, right? So I'm curious as to like, have you been able to utilize Cura Personalis in your approach to life and different Jesuit values to inform your leadership and the care for your community? So how do those things kind of play a role in your leadership style?
So, Cura Personalis, that care for the whole person, is just one part of it all. And the other part with it is Cura Apostolica, which is care for like the mission that you're given. So care for the work. And those two can never be separated. So the care for our work that we do, especially my role as dean, my role is to make sure that this work of Arupe College is cared for, and then also to care for the people individually. So it's both ends. So those are always together. And so for me, I'm always looking, whatever I'm doing, through those two lenses at all times. And but especially through the pandemic, it's, as a leader, you have to care for yourself, because you'll be a terrible leader if you're not, in a good space. And that's hard to do in a pandemic. But I think my first rule in leadership is never take yourself too seriously. You have to be able to, say sometimes like, okay, this is not working, or this, I'm not I don't have all the answers, and I can reach out for help. And I think that's something we all learned in the pandemic was, I think that the best leaders will always reach out for help when they're struggling, and seek other people's advice. And so being able to say, when I first got here, sitting through meetings where everyone has an acronym for everything, and I'm supposed to know it all, and they presume I know it all. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I have no idea. And I felt, like I felt just like I had no idea what was happening in the institution, and be able to stop people and say, okay, you need to help me with what all this means, or how these people work together or don't work together, or that is. And so asking for help is I think crucial, to otherwise you'll just become more and more stressed and more confused and upset. And so whenever I have and you have to be humble as a leader to ask for help, because you're supposed to know it all at that point. At least that's what everybody thinks. And you don't know it all. And so you have to be able to reach out. And I think another thing for me with care is sometimes we want a solution to our own problems, whether that's physical problem, or we're having mental health issues, or whatever it is, stress, that we want it to go away right now. Like we want the fastest fix, and as leaders, a lot of the times we want that too for those people who we're leading. We're like, gosh, I hope they get what they want, and I need to help them, But I'm always reminded of a phrase from a Jesuit, Pierre de Chardin, and he has a prayer, and part of the prayer is that we have to trust in the slow work of God, and that our instinct is to always to rush things. We just want to get to the end. We don't we know the goal, and let's just get to the goal and forget about all this other stuff. And I think if the pandemic has taught me anything again, to remind me about this, is that we need to leaders are called to journey with people while we're leading them and guiding them. And sometimes that's slow, and that process is slow, and caring for ourselves can be slow, and healing ourselves can be slow. And so oftentimes we're impatient with that. But, we just, and me, I am, I have the attention span of a gnat. And so, I want to move on to the next thing right away. But, when I reflect, I think in our tradition, in the Jesuit and Ignatian tradition, one of the beautiful things that we're offered is the examen, which calls us every day to step back and say, what happened today? Good, bad, and ugly. And then, to give thanks for that. And then to say, okay, what am I going to do differently? And that gets us in touch with all of our emotions when we do it right. And so that at the end of an exam, we can say, oh, you know what? Maybe it's I need more sleep tomorrow. Or maybe it's I was too curt with somebody, or I wasn't as kind as I should have been. Or wow, I was shown great kindness and love today. And to be thankful and grateful for that, and to bring us into the next part of our day, or the next day. And so, that the Cure Personalis and the Cure Apostolica for me are that, really just slowing down and being able to identify those pieces of our lives, and to help others do that too. So, an effective leader has followers. One of my favorite quotes is that, a leader with no followers is just a person taking a walk by themselves. And so, if people see a leader who is reflective, who is caring, then, that rubs off on the people around them and who they're leading, and lead by example. So, yeah. But again, I think in the end here, we've learned a lot about how to care for one another and how much care we need individually. And again, for a leader, it's hard to ask for help, but especially when we need care, to be able to reach out to others and say, help me. And part of what I liked about Arupe is, the phrase that I've used a few times now is, this a reach in culture, that we let's reach in to help each other before we have to reach out. And in order for that to happen, we have to know each other, and we have to know each other well, so that when I see, Dean Keyes is in his office with his lights off in the corner, like, that's not normal. Like, so I better go in there and make sure he's okay, So part of that is, part of care personalis is knowing the person, in more than a superficial way. So, and again, that's been difficult in the pandemic, but, we still find ways to do it. And it's one of the things I look most forward to.
Being able to walk with people, and slowing down in the process, is something that I've been trying to work on during this time too. And I don't think as a leader, I have done an excellent job of that in the past. I've always been very goal oriented and trying to get there. But I think it's really important to take out that time and to reflect and to model that reflection too, because I think that our society is kind of moving in a fast-paced way. At least it was pre-pandemic. So those are some tidbits that excellent advice, and things I hope to put into practice myself.
Yeah, it also made, like, when you were talking about that slow process, it also reminded me of like the idea of discernment, and how that is an important piece of our Jesuit culture. And I think that also calls people to slow down and look at things from different angles, and to be able to make the best decision for yourself and what you're called to do. Great. So I'm curious, where Loyola did announce that we're going to be moving forward in the fall with in-person classes. So I'm curious about, now we talked about what you did before during the pandemic, now kind of moving to this new chapter, like what adaptations are you going to take for your leadership, making consideration that the impact of over a year of, being in an adjusted learning environment. Like, what is that going to look like for you?
Who knows? I think we all have very different visions of what this is going to look like. And some of us want it to look like what it looked like last March, before it all ended. Like, it's just going to go back to normal and we're all going to be fine, and others are very hesitant to come back, or maybe don't even have a desire to come back. And so in my role, it's again, what we were just talking about, is to discern with those around me, like, what is the best way to help the entire community, slowly come back to campus. For me, it's very exciting. I mean, I'm ready. I'm in my office now, like, where is everybody? But I've been in this office now almost every day since after Christmas, and I'm very used to my routine now. There's just a few of us here, and I can go down and see Dr. Boyle, and we can leave all the doors open, and we can have very confidential conversations, spaced apart, and we don't, we can just talk freely. And we were talking the other day, like, what's this going to look like when everyone's back? And I was like, I don't know, what's it going to look like when, there's people I'm sharing this space with. But when I start to think about that, I get so excited to think about what this place will look like with students in it again, and with faculty and staff. And again, for me to be able to just walk into a classroom and experience what our students and our faculty experience, I can't wait for that. I can't wait to just, to drop in and see the amazing things I've only heard about. and for me, that's going to be the real, I think the biggest transition for me is, in my head, I have all these things that I imagine the way it's like, and I hope that's the way reality is. Maybe not, but we'll see. But I think the one of the most important things of leadership is, again, that you have to be able to pivot. You have to be able to keep an open mind and that is including expectations. So I may expect, here's my list, and somebody else says something different. I have to be able to manage those and talk it out with people. And I think that's the most important thing. Again, we go back to cure personalis. If we know one another, then we know what our expectations are of one another and of the institution itself. And so I think for me, it's just keeping those conversations open and that it's okay to change your mind, or change directions with things. And we'll have to do that a lot as we slowly, come back to campus. But I think it's going to be an exciting time. And you guys both know that, the students we do have here, when we talk about coming on campus and they want to come back to campus and see one another, to build that community. I joked the other day with the faculty and staff, with one of our faculty who's here, the students weren't really studying, they were just hanging out. They just wanted to be together, and wanted to be together with not just themselves, but with the faculty and staff. And that's something that's, really fun to see. And I can't wait to see it every day in the future.
Yeah, I think what I am looking forward to most is that piece of like having those organic conversations with people, just, walking down the hallway and or being in the lounge on the second floor or the Wintrust and really getting to know people. Like I think that is kind of like the secret or magic sauce, at Ersay, is like just people are really genuine and wanting to know the person, for who they are. And we're just so relational. And I think that is just something that I personally am also looking forward to.
Yeah, I heard this past Monday, was it Monday or Tuesday, that Tuesday, the study day was popping, as the kids like to say. And there are people who are there who are in the process or have been vaccinated, and they're just enjoying each other's company. So I'm really looking forward to coming back to that in the summer and in the fall. Because that's how it used to be, and I feel like everybody is craving for that in one way or another. I tell students every time I meet with them, those interactions like give me so much energy. Like that, I remember just being so energetic from hearing their stories and their triumphs and things that they're thinking about and decisions they're going to make. So I think that's something that we worked on during this the whole Zoom interactions, but it's just a different feel when you're in person. It's just different. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to it. But I guess the only other question we have for you, Father Tom, is the question that we ask every guest of the show. It's about looking back and giving advice to your younger self. So, we have first and second year students at Arupe, so they're 18, 19 years old, typically, maybe 20. What would Father Tom give? What kind of advice would Father Tom give to himself at that time in life?
Great question. It depends on the day I met him. What bad decision was he about to make? I think for me, I call myself a recovering pleaser. So that, someone who likes to make sure that everyone is, you're okay and you're okay. And I'm going to try to find out a way to make sure that we have peace and harmony. Like that's, how do we keep that? I don't know if that was because I was a middle child, but and for me, the surest way to show a failed leader is a leader who is a pleaser, because you cannot please all the people all the time. It's impossible, and you will not be a healthy person if you try to do it. And I think for me, I would say to myself, who was 18 or 19, it's okay, to not have peace and harmony at all times. And sometimes as a leader, especially, you have to make difficult decisions that some people will not agree with you and will not like, and they may not like you then. And that's really difficult for someone who, internalizes that, and so I think for me, that would be part of my advice, that, you'll have to learn that sometimes it's just going to be tough. And I think another thing I would say to me, is to continue to lean on really wonderful people around you. Find out who your friends are, and make sure you listen to them. Because the higher you get up into leadership, the less people will speak truth to you, especially if they know you're going to be, if it's going to cause disagreement. And so you need people around you who will say to you, what you did in there was really a bad thing, or that was a dumb idea. And you have to have the humility to be able to take it, but you also have to give that power to someone. As a leader, you have to be able to give that power to someone to challenge you. And Gallup has the polling place, and they have the strength finders. They have another one on entrepreneurial leaders and their characteristics and qualities. And they break you down into one of three categories. You're either a rainmaker, you're a conductor, or you're an expert. And whichever one of those whichever one you are, you have to make sure you have the other two people around you. So for me, I'm a conductor. I trust that I have the best people, or if I don't have the best people, I'll find the best people in their job. And then I'll do what I can to support them as best I can. And it's like conducting a symphony. When you have all the right instruments, it's beautiful. And those are the people around me who have to be able to say to me, like, ooh, this is a really bad idea. We're not going to do 6 more Arupe pop-ups this week, or whatever it is, But that's a really important quality that's often overlooked in leadership. My doctorate on the wall there is in interdisciplinary leadership, and I think it's one of the key for me. I would make sure that it would help me out along the way if somebody would have told me that. You need those people around you who can, tell you when you've said or done something crazy, or you're going off the rails, or back to that caring, cure personality, somebody to be able to come up to you and say, you need to take some time off. You need to relax. What are you doing to take care of yourself? Because you seem really stressed. So to be able to, yeah. And I'm really fortunate to have great friends, who can do that. And if you ever get too high on your horse, the best thing to do is to go back to your family, because as we know, even in Scripture, Jesus, when he went back, no prophet is welcome in his own hometown. And so when I need to be put back into place, I just go home, and my brother, he reminds me who I am right away. Like, he doesn't, he's not going to respect me for my title or whatever. He's just going to, still smack me around a little bit. But we need those people in our lives. And so, make sure that would be something I would tell my And of course, that I think when we're 18 or 19, sometimes we have a path that we think we're going to take. And, one of my other favorite lines is, God writes, our path, it's not always a straight line, it's a crooked line. And when I look back at my life, holy cow. I mean, I thought I was going to be out of high school. I was going to be a funeral director. Then I was going to be a middle school teacher. Then I was going to work at a university in student life. Then I was going to be a chaplain in a prison. Then I was going to be, a high school freshman teacher. Then I was going to be a high school administrator. And and now I'm here. Who could have predicted, that? So I think it's another great quality that we have to be open to the surprises of our lives. And for me, I believe, that our God is a God of surprises. And most people don't like surprises. They want like, what's the clear path for me, and just no surprises. But I think that surprises can be fun, and especially when you, maybe not in the moment, but when you look back and you say, wow, okay, this all worked out well, and will work out. So that's a lot of advice I would have given to my 18-year-old self. And I would tell you this, my 18-year-old self would have stopped listening to me about 5 minutes ago. So actually, he would have watched about 2 minutes of this podcast and then turned it off. Especially if he had to listen to me, but he would he would tune in for YouTube. But
so the modern version of having those people around you would be like, you need somebody to tell you need to check yourself before you wreck yourself, essentially.
That's right.
Yeah. So you need to have
the modern version was like late 90s, early 2000s. Yeah.
That's how with it I am.
It goes back to never take yourself too seriously,
Yeah.
That's
It's so true. So true. No, but I also agree with building that support network around you, and people who will give you the information or tell you the truth, things you need to hear in that moment as well. Wholeheartedly agree with that one. And I'm lucky that I have like colleagues and friends to do that as well. Students too. Students will tell me that as well, and I appreciate that. I think that's something that we have to do, and it's a mark of true leadership too. Just being willing to adapt and willing to listen, and adjusting those expectations in that as well. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think it's also a mark of being, a good community member, right? Like the idea that, and I've had students come and tell me, you look tired, Sarah, and like, and there's care in that, right? It's like, okay, I must need a nap, or I must need a break or something, right? Like I'm not looking like myself, and out of concern, somebody shared that with me, so.
Yes, we need people around us to do that. It's so important. And it's you also that you have spinach in your teeth.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I have to tell you that you want to know it. Yeah, it's so important. It really does come back to the care piece. So.
Mm-hmm. It's all about that trust building and relationship building, like you said. So if you see somebody in the office or in a dark corner, please reach out or reach in.
Reach in.
Yeah. Well, I think that kind of wraps up our podcast today. Thank you, Father Tom, for coming and joining us and sharing your wisdom and telling us a little bit about what Father Tom was like when he was 18 and 19. That was fun to hear.
I'm so glad you didn't. Well, thank you. This is great. I love it, and I'm excited. Hopefully, you'll continue to do this. When we're in person, maybe we can go over and use the studio.
Okay.
Then we would all have those nice microphones.
Yeah.
You
You wouldn't feel left out.
I want to use this little tiny one.
I was telling Father Tom to those listeners that he needs to get one of those tiny microphones like the TikTok influencers that's like really soft and tell you things. Describe the city over this tiny mic. Sounds really good.
You know what? I think we have to just redo the whole podcast now. I'm going to go get one. And I probably have to change my background. I need a little something more fun than this.
Oh my gosh. Well, tune in 2 weeks. We'll be having another episode. Thank you again, Father Tom.
Is that going to be part 2 with me, or are we going to do something else? I mean, I think the viewers are going to want more once we go viral.
We'll look at the comments and the views.
Be kind.
Bye, y'all.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Members at Ep5 College and our partners at Arthur J. Smith Foundation for their support in the Smith Scholars Leadership Program.